So let's begin with the historical significance of Victory Day for Russia in particular. Why is this day so important?
It's the day of obviously when they signed the victory with over in Berlin. But what's been important is that Putin has made it his signature holiday. He has ramped up the holiday every year from when he first came into power to make it a sense of Russia overcoming the humiliation of feeling unheard, unrecognized by the West.
And many people were expecting Putin to make a big announcement today, ramping up the war effort, the Russians' effort in Ukraine. Putin didn't do that. Why do you think he did not declare war on Ukraine today?
There's a fundamental misunderstanding in the West. For Putin, war is with a sovereign country. When he went to war in Chechnya, it was also not allowed to be called a war. It was a special military operation because it was within the borders of Russia. I think from the beginning, he's been making the same statement about Ukraine, that Ukraine belongs in Russia. Ukraine is not a separate state. Therefore, it can't be a war. It's a special operation.
Okay. So in Ukraine, they were feeling a certain amount of renewed dread about what Putin would have to say today. Can they breathe a little bit easier?
Not much. I mean, the other big issue is whether he was going to declare a military conscription. I think that is challenging for him. If he has an influx of raw recruits, there's no guarantee that they'll perform well. He's already tried that. He sent in recruits right on February 24th. They performed miserably, and the risk of protest is going to escalate. So I think the fact that he did not declare a general conscription is very important. The fact that he went back to old language about why the war is important is also important. He went right back to NATO encirclement, which, as we know, but this is actually the same language that early Bolsheviks used about the communist state being encircled by capitalists. He's playing that sense of humiliation, that sense of encirclement, the claim that they were about to invade us. He also typically claims what he's doing is what the other guy is doing, that the West is about to invade, that the West is about to use nuclear weapons. None of these things there's no evidence whatsoever that that NATO or the US were putting nuclear weapons in Ukraine. He needs to make this a grand victory, a grand war to be united with his people. But it's a very tricky situation.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, do you think it's an acknowledgement that the war isn't going the way he planned?
Possibly. The people he did not have up on the podium, he did not have Gerasimov, who is his military head, who he has sent to the front. He's lost so many Russian generals. He knows it. The numbers of Russians who are tuning in through VPN, the secure networks, to try to get news seems to be going up. Ukrainian hacks are working on, not just Ukrainian, I think other countries are helping on military. So the Russians are starting possibly to get extra information if they want it. In the Soviet Union, they did. Many people tuned in to get Voice of America or whatever, and I think Russians can do it. It's a question of whether they want to believe what Putin is saying, and whether they need a military victory to be a great country. That's the sad part.
Last question, and I'll need a quick answer. Unfortunately, I'm on TV time, Professor. We're 10 weeks into this. Where do you see this war going?
I think Putin's going to try to make it a long war. I fear that he's going to hunker down. What he really wants is that land bridge to Crimea. I think that's actually more important to him than the NATO encirclement. The NATO encirclement is the excuse. What he really wants are the ports in Ukraine and the connection to Crimea. Will he back down? He's already backed down. Will he back further? I think he has to see some way to declare victory out of this. And ironically, I think that when the U.S. and NATO are united and saber-rattling, makes it easier for him to backtrack and say, NATO was so strong, I could not win this time. If he's defeated by Ukraine, looks really bad for his whole signature masculinity. So I think let's see what happens, but I'm worried it could be a long slog.
Professor Wood, great having you with us. Thanks so much for your analysis.